Welcome to Have a Kind Word with Yourself, a podcast that helps us to keep kind, creative, and connected. My name is Rose Kondo, and I'm your host. I'm a poet, a performer, a regular wanderer of parks, and I love connecting with communities. In each episode, I talk to a fellow creative about their work and some of the things that help them to keep well along the way. In every chat, I use the letters in the word kind to spark our conversation. In today's chat, we talk about being unapologetically ourselves and about those invitations that help us to step through imposter syndrome. Before we start, I'd love for you to take a moment to think about connection, literally. What are you connected to right now? Maybe it's the floor, a chair that you're sitting on, socks on your feet, your headphones. I love doing this in moments when I feel overwhelmed. Counting 2 or 3 things that I'm connected to creates some calm for me. Highly recommended. Okay, let's get these kind words rolling. My guest today is Sharena Lee Satti. Sharena is a Bradford-based published poet, spoken word artist, educator, and advocate for creative expression. Her performances have taken her to stages such as the Women of the World Festival and the British Council Nepal. She has supported thousands of students and adults through creative mentoring, poetry workshops, and personal development sessions. Her work explores themes of identity, resilience, and emotional expression. She upholds empathy and a deep commitment to creating environments where everyone feels valued, supported, and inspired. I have had the gift of watching her perform many times and seeing her organize enormous events that were filled with joy and warmth. What a treat it is to speak to her today. Welcome, Sharena, to Have a Kind Word with Yourself.
Thank you, Rose. It's great to be here.
It's so lovely to have you with the podcast. And to start off, I'd love to know what are some kind words that you've heard recently?
Kind words. I think I'm just looking at my mood board on the wall, and one of them that I wrote for myself. I created like a 2026 inspiration mood board, and it says just to be unapologetically myself. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's kind of like one of the things that I was thinking about this year, just to be unapologetically myself. Other kind words, gosh, why is this so hard? When you try to think of kind words. My girls say they love me a lot, so that's one of the most wonderful words to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love that. And I love that you have a mood board for 2026. I am a huge fan of like post-its and making pages and things, but I've never actually done a mood board. And I feel like I need this in my life because that sounds wonderful. And I love that the kind words that first came to mind were words that you have posted up for yourself to remind yourself. I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important to have that because I feel like we sometimes leave ourselves behind when we're, especially when you're thinking of like new beginnings and there's just so much that come rushing in rather than yourself. So yeah, it's something that I want to prioritize this year.
Brilliant. Well, excellent world. Get ready for an unapologetic Sharena Lee Satti. Yeah. And I wondered as well if we could start with thinking about remembering back to how our paths first crossed. Do you remember where we first connected?
Was it in the, I know it was at a poetry event, and I think it was one with, I can't remember, there was a festival in Wakefield, I think. Um,
That's right. Yeah, I think so. Was it Simon Widdop who had put it together?
yeah, that was the first time, yeah, we met. Yeah.
That's right. I was actually really struggling to remember because our paths have crossed so many times to kind of trace it back. And I knew that I had seen you at a lovely poetry event in Keighley, But yeah, I'd forgotten about the Wakefield one. That was a really, really fun day. And yeah, our paths have now crossed in so many different ways through like the Huddersfield Literature Festival, through your work with the National Poetry Centre at the Lawrence Batley Theatre. And I have to say, a very special time was when you came and read at the launch of my second poetry collection with Flapjack Press. That was pretty special.
It really was. I was really honoured to be there. And we're going back to like when we're thinking back to the festival when I first met you, I remember that was kind of like one of the huge like gigs, so to speak, that I was very like honoured to take part in. And Simon kind of like put me forward, and it was like, as with all these professional poets, now just kind of like this poet just starting out, and he gave me that platform to be able to, yeah, to be with other great poets that now, like yourself, I've been on the stage with yourself so many times, and it's like, but back then he gave me that kind of that opportunity, that, yeah, and I was always really grateful for that, because sometimes you just need to be put in like just this little poet that was just, yeah, finding her feet, and then she finds herself alongside so many incredible poets that have been doing it for such a long time, and then you kind of take that same kind of inspiration and want to keep doing that and passing it on. So yeah, I was really appreciative of Simon giving me that opportunity back then, and yeah, I was so like blown away with everybody in that room.
It was a really amazing day, honestly. And I think there really is something about that, the connectors, because I see you as a definite connector as you've really established yourself as a poet in connecting other poets with each other or other artists with each other, and certainly in the work that you're doing now with the National Poetry Centre, but even through your Sisterhood Festival, which we might talk about a little bit later as well. But then when you are just starting out, and I remember feeling like this myself in my early days of someone asking me to do something and thinking, okay, well, first of all, huge imposter syndrome. And then beneath that, going, I guess if they think I can do it, then maybe I can. And that being that boost of confidence going forward.
Yeah, definitely. It just masks for your confidence, like just seeing that somebody else believes in you, and then you feel like maybe I am good enough. Yeah.
Well, and you do so many things. My goodness, you've published work, you run workshops, run festivals, you perform. What do you love most about the creative work that you do?
I think it's making connections. Like I love making connections, and kind of again, just back in them days, like what Simon did for me, give me a platform to share among some incredible poets when I was just starting out myself. I love doing that, like being a window or an opening door to connecting people and learning as well. Like I love learning from people, and I love allowing others to learn from me. So I feel like it's that whole kind of connection thing going on.
Yeah, definitely. I see you doing that so much in Bradford where you're based, but across the UK and certainly like internationally as well. So it's an incredible reach that you have. And I have a really distinct memory of at it was at Bradford Library, and I think it was the Sisterhood Festival, and you were wearing like all the hats that day. You were hosting things and you were greeting people and you were helping with setup. And it was this lovely space where there were stalls of people selling books and doing henna tattoos. And then there was a stage where there was music and poetry. And I just saw you at one point, you were carrying this giant bag for life that was filled with like biscuits and cups and things. And you sat down and chatted with someone who needed a bit of a chat. And I just thought, oh my gosh, she's part superhero. This is really incredible. Well, we're going to jump into our kind chat. And as you know, I'm using the word kind as a way to frame what we're going to talk about. And I'm using the letters in the word kind to inspire us. So some might call this an acrostic poem, some might call it an acronym, some might just think, oh, okay, that's how she's doing it. However, someone might interpret this. Each letter in the word kind stands for a word that we're going to chat through. And the first letter is K. So the first word I've chosen is kitchen. So, Sharena, what's in your creative kitchen? Meaning, what do you use to kind of cook up or create kindness towards yourself?
I think it's sometimes just knowing, I think more so now is just knowing when to pause, just to kind of just have a little break and a pause for myself, because like you said, there's always something, if it's freelance work or full-time work, and you're always busy doing something or with family or with you don't always get that time to just pause. So I've really been focusing on that kind of like self-love to have 5 minutes, even if it's in the bathroom, just locking the door, like no one's coming in. Near the toilet, you can wait. Breathing space and just time for myself just to pause.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an important reminder. We get so caught up in the doing and the productivity. I think especially, I don't know if it's unique to creatives, but because we're often thinking about loads of projects and ideas and getting excited about them and then doing them and spinning a whole bunch of plates at the same time, that pausing just gets lost in the mix. What would an ideal pause be for you?
So for me, mainly in spring. I mean, I do get to do it a little bit now, but it's too cold. But
Yeah.
just finding a field somewhere and just sitting down and just, I don't know, I'm a lover of the sky. So I just love to pause and just look up at the sky or, yeah, just find some kind of poetry in that. But I just love, yeah, just a field and just to sit and pause. That's kind of like my perfect ideal scenario of pausing. But when it's not warm, then it's just mainly just yeah, having 5 minutes in the nice hot bubble bath or in
Yeah.
bed before I go, like before I want to close my eyes and just thinking about like, I don't know, myself, the day, offloading the energy before I sleep or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a nice reminder that that self-care can be in little micro doses. It can feel sometimes like it needs to be a weekend retreat at a yoga center, which would be wonderful, sure, but that's not available to us all the time. Or even it needs to be an hour every day of meditation, which again, if you can do that, wonderful. But yeah, finding 5 minutes to just sit and have a hot second to reflect, to close your eyes, those things are incredibly valuable as well and can be those acts of kindness for yourself for sure.
I always have in my mind of like, we're very blessed to be here. And I always find life is a blessing. And I always just take, like as we're breathing, somebody else is taking their last breath. So it's kind of like just sometimes in the moments of chaotic busyness, it's just that's all you can have, that 5 minutes of just, oh, I need to breathe now and just take that time out. So yeah, I always find that it works. It's been working.
Nice one. I love that. So next up in the word kind is the letter I, and the word I've chosen for that is inspiration. Where do you find inspiration?
I find it everywhere. So someone once asked me like, what is poetry to you? And I said, poetry is life. Like it's everything from, the paths of people you walk across, from someone maybe pulling a funny face or someone smiling. It could be the cars that pass you by, the funny flower that's just dangling out of the side of the path or something. It could just be anything that comes to mind. And I find inspiration in everything, mainly in a pretty sky. I get really frustrated when the clouds are just clouding over and it's like, we need some blue sky or we need something.
We need to not live in England if that's the case.
yeah, yeah. But equally, even with rain as well, I love that. And it's kind of like just, I find inspiration in everything and nature in particular.
Yeah. Have you always been drawn to nature for inspiration?
I think so. I've always seen it kind of like as freedom, like it's a place where you can energize and feel free. So like as a young kid growing up, it was like going out and running and be free and parks and that kind of stuff because I was in that kind of genre of age where it was just be outdoors quite a lot. So yeah, I've always loved it.
I certainly echo that feeling of finding inspiration in nature. And it can sometimes take a bit of effort to remember to go for a walk in a nearby park. Do you seek out that inspiration or that going into nature with a particular aim? Like, I guess what I mean is if you're going for a walk, are you hoping to find the seed of a poem, or do you just let it wash over you and let it land? Or is it sometimes a combination of both of those things?
Yeah, it's so strange because like I go for quite a lots of walks just because I think it's good for mindfulness and just to kind of like re-energize after a long day at work or something. So even if it's freezing, I'll try force myself to get out for a little bit of time.
Very brave.
And and like sometimes it could be like for most people that know me, they know I'm a bit obsessed with the moon, and like as soon as I see it, I don't know what it is. It's like seeing it for the first time, and I get really excited, and it surprises me if I see it in the sky, even though I've seen it so many times in my lifetime. Um, so it's kind of I could see the same tree or the same kind of I could be on the same path, but something else new would always like pop out, or I'd notice something new.
Yeah, like coming to it with fresh eyes all the time. That makes a lot of sense. And do you find that nature arrives in your poetry, or is it just that space to let your mind be to then start to think about different things to write about?
Yeah, I think nature allows me to empty my mind and kind of like re-energize and fill up. But then it also sneaks into my poem. So I like to disguise a lot of things sneaked in as trees or the moon. And I can use metaphors to disguise other things. So it gets people thinking a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. And there is something about keeping that channel open as well. I know it is that legendary conversation between Martha Graham and Agnes de Mille about keeping the channel open. And it sounds like you're kind of building that into your practice as much as you can, both for looking after yourself and for creating space for inspiration. So the next letter in the word kind is N. And the word I've chosen for that is noticing. And you've been talking about noticing things when you go on your walk, and I love that idea of seeing the same tree again for the first time and the moon. But thinking about it with kindness, what are you noticing about kindness these days?
Because I live in such kind of like a bit of a digital world with like work, I'm on screen quite a lot, and then when I do get out, it's usually just with family. And there's always kindness within your own home, but I think externally, like the small things of kindness is like a friend WhatsApping you. Like I've got a friend, and I don't get to see her very often, and she's had a new baby, and like she shared a picture of her daughter the other day that she'd drawn, and she shared a poem, and she shared that her daughter's going to share a poem that she's written in school, and she's been asked to share this poem by the head teacher. And she started the Sisterhood Festival and Sisterhood Open Mics, I mean, many years ago. So it just made me just so like, it's not in particular acts of kindness, but her sharing that is, and it's kind of like, it was just really beautiful to like see that story of because she hadn't shared much poetry for ages, and she's been obviously mad busy with family. Just little things like that, like for me, that's an act of kindness, but it's also an act of inspiration, and that's how I keep a lot of my connections because it is through like WhatsApp or it's maybe seeing friends on Instagram or whatever. But yeah, just little acts of things like that, and even with work, like work colleagues, saying good morning in the morning, recognizing how was your evening, and just things like that can really like yeah it's just lovely.
Yeah, it's those little acts, isn't it? That there's no big agenda behind it or anything. It's about connecting. It
Yeah,
does make a difference.
definitely it does, especially when I've heard friends from a long time and you get to hear a little bit of insight into their poetry journey that they're eventually picking up. I always get super excited when people start sharing their poetry that they haven't done in ages or they're going back to it. Yeah, it gets me excited.
Yeah, definitely. That's the Sharena the connector, I think, that's alive and well in you for sure. Yeah, in these chats that I've been having, social media gets mentioned a lot because it is such a an ever-moving, enormous entity in our lives. And there's often a comment about its positives. And yeah, what you're saying about WhatsApp for friends who you might not have heard from in a while or seeing what others are up to on Instagram can be an opportunity to notice kindness, I guess, eh?
Definitely, yeah. Acts of kindness is another form of like when people just like, comment, or share, and they're kind of like showing that kind of supportive connection type thing. And yeah, there's a lot of that on Instagram, which I think is really nice that people are just there showing their love and support, and that is through a like or a I really like your poem. It's acts of kindness.
I really like that perspective because I think I'm definitely guilty of this. I try not to be, but I'm guilty of it with posting things online and keeping an eye on likes or keeping an eye on comments. And what you're saying there is a really nice reminder of whoever responds, that's a response, and that's great. And if it's one person, if it's my mum, because she's usually the first one to like and comment, that's wonderful. It is a connection, it is a response. And shouldn't that fundamentally be, what it is about? And if there's more than that, then great. But yeah, there's at least been some connection. Can you talk a little bit about the Sisterhood Festival and open mic? Because it has been running for quite some time, hey?
Yeah, so that this it was original. So we originally called it Sisterhood Open Mic because it was kind of like a connection for women to come together and have a space in a library where, one, it's a space where there's no alcohol, and two, it's a space where we're surrounded by books, which just felt perfect. And it's a safe space for women to come and share whatever they wanted to share because there was nothing like that available. And when I started writing poetry back in the days, I always craved for a space like that, but there was none about. And with my poetry back then being so very personal and deep, I was sharing it in pubs, which weren't appropriate. I look back now and think, gosh, I'm quite
Mm.
brave actually. Um, so yeah, it's been running for over 3 years. We did change the name to Sisterverse to kind of give it a literature feel because we felt like, yeah, sisterhood. We're not creating a cult here. We're just creating, women that are coming together and they want to share words. So we thought we'd give it a bit of a shape up. And we're currently on a bit of a pause because it's winter and everyone's cold and wrapped up and just we're thinking about restarting again in spring. But from the open mic, we have been running a festival as well alongside it. So for the past 3 years, we've been running a yearly festival that's been taking place at different parts of the year. We've been playing around with times, but it's just so lovely to see so many women come together. And I think, again, what's really beautiful about that is the connections that people make, seeing women from the first step of being super nervous to now being published poets, doing their own workshops, running and like just bossing it everywhere. It's just, I just love that kind of like, it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that's what the platform were there for, just to inspire and hopefully uplift people to feel more like encouragement to get to other open mics and yeah, just follow their dreams.
Yeah, I love that being part of a bigger whole, that it isn't just this one thing on its own, that it is, like you say, for some people, a stepping stone or sort of a part of a bigger picture or a wider community. I love the name Sisterverse as well, both in terms of the literary connection, but it gives me the sense of a universe too. So yeah, that's incredible and wonderful that it's been running for so long. I've had the wonderful opportunity to go along to a couple of them, and being in Bradford Library surrounded by books performing is incredible. It's just so lovely. And as you were talking, it reminded me of another memory from the Sisterhood Festival, which, the room was full of women of all ages, and there were children running around being, cared for and supportive and cuddled when they needed to be. There was food and just every bit of creativity everywhere you looked. But in particular, I remember a young person getting up to sing, and she was really nervous. Forgive me, I don't remember her name, but she's got an incredible voice. And there were issues with her speaker wasn't picking up the music and the microphone. And I think she has spoken about how she deals with quite a bit of anxiety. And so at one point, she just kind of dissolved into tears. And it was like this halo of women was just suddenly around her. Someone was giving her a hug. Someone was giving her a glass of water. Someone was like rubbing her back. Someone got her a tissue. And it felt like I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. Like it was the perfect space to just need to be supportive. And all of these women were just encircling her, boosting her up, telling her how amazing she was. And I remember feeling really emotional about it, thinking like, this is so incredibly genuine and so love filled, and there is wisdom and strength in all of this. What a beautiful memory from that.
Yeah, I can remember that moment. That's the space that I love to help create. I
Yeah.
always say like the open mics and the festival, it's not mine, it's everybody's, it's a community thing. We build it together. It's there for it's inspired by the needs and the wants, and it is the communities, and that's how it's built, with that kind of love and respect and that safety.
We are coming to the end of our word kind, and the last letter is D, and the word I've chosen is dream. So, what do you dream of for kindness in the future?
I just, yeah, I always say that people should treat others how they expect to be treated. So it's kind of always having that in mind, like having that, if you want to be treated kind and respected and loved and cared for, then treat others in that same way, and always have that like at the forefront. And I think there's just so much beauty in being kind. Like, just I don't understand why no one would not want to be kind. I get so much happiness, and I don't know, I get a buzz when I can make somebody else smile, or when I can do something that just lifts somebody else up. Like, that fuels me more than even going for a walk. So it's kind of like kindness. It's it's people use it as a gift, but it shouldn't be a gift. It's a part of us. It lives with us. We should be sharing it more. And I think if more people did, then yeah, the world would just be a more beautiful place. And I hope more people do share kindness and spread kindness, and just keep that in mind. Like, if you want to feel happy, you want others to treat you well, then do that to others too.
Yeah, it feels like such a simple concept. And yet, of course, it isn't because the world wouldn't be in the state that it's in if we didn't, if kindness was so fundamental to the way that we all were with each other, then we'd be in a bit of a different place. But that idea of the buzz from kindness, I think, is an interesting way to think of it. And I think a lot these days about kindness as resistance, both outwardly from a lot of the negativity that's in the world, but my own, I'm going to resist any of that negativity in myself. And that's not saying denying anger or envy or those sorts of things, because they're human emotions, but using kindness as the antidote to that for myself and outwardly as well. Does that resonate at all?
Definitely, I think it does. And I think thinking about kindness, because there is so much going on in the world, and it is like, I've got friends that speak about the news, and I'm like, I don't watch the news, I switch it off. And I think it's so important to sometimes just think on that small scale, like think of showing kindness to that one person, and then in hope that ripple effect carries on to the next person. Because I think when you think so widely of everything that's going on in the world, you kind of think, well, why be kind in a world that's unkind? And so I kind of think you just sometimes got to just not switch off, but try just focus on what's in front of you to show that kindness, to kind of hope that it kind of like flows. And I do think and believe that it starts with showing yourself kindness.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
because yeah, when you show yourself kindness, then I don't know, you know how to kind of like show it on to somebody else, because I do feel like we're not as kind to ourselves as we should be. And I've noticed that more as I'm getting slightly older, and the body starts changing and everything else starts looking a little bit different, and you're like, gosh, this is when you really need to just show yourself a bit more self-love and be a bit more kinder to yourself.
I definitely can relate to that, being well into perimenopause.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, you write in your poetry a lot of profound and personal things. And I think what you're saying about kindness and sharing that in a very direct, kind of local way, or with those who are directly within your circle, or the people that you're encountering, is great. When you share your poetry that is perhaps quite personal or quite moving or emotional, how are you finding that response from people? And do you feel like that sparks kindness from your words, or perhaps inspires people's kindness towards themselves in hearing your words?
I always find the responses back is, one, they appreciate the vulnerability of what I'm sharing, because somewhere in that poem they find themselves, and that allows them to feel like that they can express themselves too. Like they don't have to apologize like, oh, this poem is a bit depressing, or, this poem's, it's like they can be, again, that word keeps coming up, unapologetically themselves through me being just sharing a vulnerable poem or sharing something that's a little bit deep and raw. I think just standing there and expressing that in that kind of way, it helps others to be able to share their voices.
It's such a courageous act, I think. I think it's a courageous act to share poetry, and it can be a courageous act to receive it as well, to see the vulnerability in someone else's words and let that come in to you. And whether that's just something you feel on your own as an audience member, you might not say anything to anybody, but you might say something to someone. You might go and speak to the poet and say, this is really connected for me. Yes, I know that certainly happened to me a number of times, and I can imagine it happens to you quite often as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's having that space as well to think like, wow, you've written something that could actually be part of my life. Or and I love that that's what poetry does, because like you can create a poem and it can connect to so many different people in different ways. And they pull out different things and elements of that poem that connects to them, even though you could have written it about something completely different. So I love that poetry does that, and people can find their own voice through it, and it does give you that confidence that I think in the beginning it gave me the confidence massively to keep writing and to keep going, because in the beginning of writing I needed that kind of like, yeah, this is all right, this is good, because I probably wouldn't have carried on if I'd have thought it were terrible. So it's kind of, yeah, that has inspired me and other people's kindness by liking my work to keep writing.
Absolutely. I'm such a big fan of going up to someone when I've heard them read at a poetry night and saying how much I liked it. And I struggle sometimes with it because I want to find a way to express how it has connected for me or resonated or, you know, brought up some emotion or some joy or some warmth or something in me. And usually it just comes out as, that was great. I really enjoyed that. That was brilliant. And it just doesn't feel like it captures it. And yet, maybe there's just something in that exchange that brings that out into the world a little bit and might land for the poet a bit.
Definitely, I think that appreciation and that recognition is just it's huge, and especially for, I mean, for any poet out there, but I think in particular for poets that are just starting out and they're a bit nervous, like that is, well, it was life changing for me many years ago when I was given the opportunities to stand on stages when I was petrified and probably
Yeah,
sweaty hands and shaky knees. But that, yeah, that appreciation and recognition, it helps keep you going and keeps you motivated to carry on writing as well.
definitely. I'm hearing a lot of the idea of kindness being a two-way street in what you're saying too.
I think it should be. Although I always use that saying of like, don't give to receive, because, yeah,
Yeah.
but I do feel like kindness should be a two-way thing. And if it is, it kind of like bounces off and it kind of like can fill more rooms and it can be more amplified.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point about not giving to receive. And I think I meant kindness is a two-way street, not in a transactional way, but yeah, that shared toing and froing of that positive energy, that encouragement, that motivation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Sharena, I could talk to you for hours. This has been incredibly uplifting. We're going to bring it to a bit of a close, but I had a couple more questions. This podcast is called Have a Kind Word with Yourself. And the overarching aim is exploring how we can keep kind, creative, and connected. What would you say is one of your top tips for how we can keep kind, creative, and connected?
I think one of my top tips would be to, again, it just refers back to some of the things that I've shared, and it would be just to show kindness in whatever kind of like, I mean, for me, I'm in the kind of like digital world where I see a lot of my friends online. So it's just connecting with your loved ones and the people that you care for. Show support to them, even if it's, just, hi, how you doing? How's your day going? Good morning. It's just the little things. It's the little things that really do matter. And I think we get lost in these huge ideas of yeah, of what we can do show kindness and to make people happy and to have that connectiveness. But I think just a simple of remembering somebody, how's your day going? If it's social media and that's your kind of connective platform for seeing people, it's just sharing a post like, this is an amazing poem. I like to do that quite a lot. Like a lot of people reach out, Sharena, can you share a poem? Can you share my post? And it's like, of course, yeah, just put it on my story. And it's like, I love doing things like that because I feel like, I want to recognize people's work, keep connected. And I think sometimes just small acts of kindness of just, yeah, showing appreciation to people. It's on social media or if it's just with your friends and family and just checking in.
I love that. Just many, many small acts of kindness. I'm getting the image of a connect the dots picture. Do you remember that from childhood where you'd have dots numbered and you'd have to draw lines, and then once you finished all the lines, you'd have this picture? I feel like
Yeah.
you're describing this incredibly beautiful, kind, creative connect the dots picture, and that the image that we get is this ever evolving, beautiful, connected community. That's just wonderful. I'm also thinking about what you were talking about early in our chat with walking in the park. And I often go to Heaton Park. It's near where my husband Kieran and I live, and we'll go for a walk together. And I will say good morning to everybody we pass. And it drives Kieran crazy sometimes, where he's like, bloomin' friendly Canadian. And I think I'm going to collect responses because it's a nice thing to do. It's nice to smile and say good morning. And some people don't make eye contact. That's fine. And others nod and say good morning back. And it just feels like this lovely mini connection of, I'm probably not going to see that person again, but it was a nice little moment. So yeah, long may we continue to do these little mini acts of kindness. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you would like to tell listeners about or anything you'd like to plug before we finish?
I don't have anything to plug. But I just hope anyone that's tuned in that they have a beautiful, gentle ease into 2026 and not to rush into anything, and just to try go with the flow and follow the acts of kindness for themselves, whatever that may be. And yeah, hopefully I will continue in writing poetry a little bit more. That's what I want to do, continue writing a little bit more.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you continue to be unapologetically yourself. And I'm speaking on behalf of the world, would love to have more of your poetry, but create it as and when you can and be gentle with yourself along the way. But thank you so much for spending this time on the podcast. It's been really, really lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Rose.
I feel like I'm holding a handful of kindness gems after that chat. All the little ways we can be kind in our communities with our friends, our families, our online connections. And I love the notion of getting a buzz from kindness and the value of knowing when to pause. Enormous thanks, Sharena. I'll put links to Sharena's website in the show notes and to where you can order her wonderful poetry books. In the meantime, thanks so much for listening. We'll have another episode coming your way soon. You can like and subscribe on Spotify, Podbean, and Apple Podcasts. If you want to find out more about me and my work, that would be bloomin' lovely. You can drop me a line through my website, rosecondo.net, where you can see some beautiful illustrations by Neve Wood, also known as Little Badger. Our beautiful music has been composed and recorded by Eleonora Rosca. And finally, please share this to help us to keep kind, creative, and connected.